Hello everyone and welcome back to another video, and today we are going to be doing the mortgage repayment calculator challenge from Frontend Mentor. So if you go into frontendmentor.io/challenges, you can go into the challenges link and then you can search for the mortgage repayment calculator, and this is the challenge that we're going to do. So you can simply click on this card and then you can go into the download assets tab, and then you can download the starter files, which I'm going to go ahead and do. So it is going to download a zip file, which I'm just going to place inside my videos folder. So save, and then that is going to download. So I can open it up if I open up my videos, and this is it right here, the zip file. So if you're on Linux like I am, then you can simply double click it, which is going to extract it. Or if you're on Windows or Mac, I don't know how Mac works, you can right click and then extract, which is going to extract into this folder. Now this is going to be a guideline for us because we're going to be building this application in Next.js. So what we need to do next is go ahead and create our Next.js application. So I'm going to open up my terminal, and then inside my terminal I'm going to cd into my desktop. So cd desktop and then into a folder that is called projects. And then inside the projects folder, I'm going to say pnpx create next app, and then I'm going to pass in -- example flag because I want to use a template repository that we have been using for the past, I think, 4 or 5 projects that we've built on the channel. And this repository basically has all the dependencies that I use for new projects, and it uses the Next.js 15 app router without the source folder. So https github.com/sancthomas/next 15-starter. That is the link to the repository. You can open it up to take a look at it, but don't worry about it because we're going to run our application and then we're going to go through this as well. So next 15 starter, and then the name of our application, I'm going to call it mortgage repayment calculator. Enter. And then as this is running, actually, let's talk about this particular repository, and the URL is wrong. Next 15 starter. Okay. GitHub next 15 starter. Where did I mess up? https github.com/example https. Anyway, we can just go ahead and redo it. So you can see that when I open up this link, then it is a public template. So you can access it if you want to use this to canvas your new Next.js application. If you just scroll down a bit, you will see what is in this repository. So we are using shardcn, which is a component library, and this is the link right here. We are using Prettier plugin, which just reorders tailwind CSS classes when you type them. We're using JavaScript because I don't know TypeScript, and the default font is Geist Sans and it is set up in the globals.css file. And then of course I'm using pnpm, but if you want to use another package manager, make sure that you delete the pnpm log file first of all, and then install node modules using your preferred package manager. And that is basically the gist of this repository, nothing really fancy about it. So let me copy this link and then let's retry it. So pnpx create next app -- example and pass in the link inside here. It doesn't seem to be wrong anywhere. And then mortgage repayment calculator. Enter, and then let's see. Okay, so it says it's an invalid link. How to use a template repository in Next.js. Probably I'm passing in the wrong flag, but I've done it quite a few times. npx create next app at latest -- example template name and then my app. So copy this, paste it inside here, and then at the beginning let's say pnpx -- example. This should pass in the link to the GitHub repository, and then this should be the name of the application. So mortgage repayment calculator. I didn't realize that this video we would be stuck in the beginning. So https://github.com/my name/next dash next 15 dash start. Enter. What? I can't believe we are stuck at the beginning of this video. Do I have a project that is called mortgage repayment? I don't have a project like that, right? Okay, not. Let's just use the default Next.js because this doesn't seem to be working. So at latest, and then let's say mortgage repayment calculator. Let's just do that. I mean, we can install the other dependencies later. So we don't want to use TypeScript, so no. We want ESLint, we want Tailwind, we don't want the source directory, we want app router, we don't want TurboPack, but you can test out if TurboPack works for you. It doesn't work for me because I don't have an SSD or something of the sort. And then the default alias, we don't want to change it, so no. And then let this run, and then we are going to continue once it finishes. So once that runs, then I'm going to go ahead and say Z mortgage repayment calculator. Now Z is a new code editor which I'm just trying out in place of VS Code because it is much lighter. As you can see how fast it opens, and then it is also very fast. And one of the features that I really like about it is that if I open up a file here and I start typing, the cursor disappears. I have no idea why VS Code hasn't implemented that yet, but I really like that when I start typing inside here immediately, then the cursor disappears. That is a very, very welcome change for me. But as you can see, it is pretty similar to VS Code, and the commands that you usually use in VS Code also work inside here. So for example, Control J is going to open up your terminal, and Control P is going to open up your file browser, and Control Shift P is going to open up your command palette. So things like that. And I've not installed any extensions inside here, so I'm basically working with it out of the box. And before we continue, you don't have to use Z. I'm just trying it out to see how it works, but I might switch to it because I think it's just currently better, even though it doesn't have all the features in VS Code that I usually use. But as of now, I think it's much better for recording. So once again, Control J to open up your terminal, and then you can say pnpm dev, which is going to open up our dev server, and then we can take a look at our Next.js application. So we can open this up on localhost 3000. So localhost 3000, close this page as well. And there we go. So this is the default Next.js application. And before we can continue, we need to install a few dependencies, which we would not have to do in case the template was working. But as we've seen, the template is not working. So let's go ahead and do them. Now let me just open up my repository, which I can't remember. So next 15 starter. And then inside this repository, we need to install shardcn. So let's go into shardcn docs right here, and then into the installation docs, and then installation. Then we're using Next.js, and I'm using pnpm. So this is the command that I'm going to run. So just copy this inside our terminal. You can Control Shift and backtick, which is going to add a second terminal, and then just paste it in and then let it run. And we're going to use neutral for our base color, and then that should configure automatically. There we go. So it even creates a components.json file for us, which contains the configuration for shardcn. And there we go. Now from shardcn, we're going to be using 3 components. So let's go ahead and just install them right away because we are here. So pnpx shardcn, I was thinking about install. So pnpx shardcn add, and we want to install the button, the input, and the label, and then enter, and it's going to install this into the components folder. And there we go. So it creates a components folder and then a UI folder, and then places the files inside here. Now next, what we need to install is Prettier plugin. So simply click on this link, open it up on a new tab, and we should be able to install this. So right on the bottom, we need to go ahead and save this. So copy this because I'm using pnpm. So the command is just a bit different. Instead of saying npm install, I'm going to say pnpm add. So if you're using npm install, then you can simply copy this. So copy and then insert here pnpm add and then paste in that, which is going to install it. And then as it is installing, we need to go ahead and create this file. So copy this and then inside the root, we can go and say create a new file called .prettier.rc. Make sure that you get the spelling correctly and then paste that in and then remove the top part and then save it. And then we can close that and then that should be it. And then what else? Actually, that's it. Now, if we go back into our application, it says Tailwind CSS, Tailwind admit CSS. Where is it? Where's my package JSON? Okay. Can close this. So we need this is installed here, but okay, you know what? We need to shut down our server. So shut this down, clear the terminal, pnpm dev to restart it. And then I think we can safely close that and we can begin to work on our mortgage repayment calculator. And then let's try to reload that. Actually, there it is. So now everything is working. Now the reason why it is a lighter color now is because we have installed shadcn. So it goes ahead into the Tailwind. Where is that file? Sorry, the globals.css, not the Tailwind. It goes into the globals.css and as you can see, it changes quite a number of styles. So that is the reason why now this is a lighter color instead of the usual dark theme color of Next.js. That is if you're on dark mode. Now, what we're going to do therefore is we want to go ahead and begin building right away. So inside our page.js file, this is where our entire application is going to live. So what I'm going to do is just select everything inside here and remove it. And then at the top of the file, I'm going to mark the file as use client because by default, Next.js uses server components. And the reason why we need use client on the top is because we want to add in some state on the client side. So we need this directive. Now inside here, we're going to say export default function mortgage calculator. And then inside this, we're going to open up our brackets and we're going to have quite a number of state values, which I want to go ahead and create right away. So I'm going to have const loan amount, and then set loan amount. This is going to be equal to use state, and by default, it's going to be 0. And then we're going to have interest rate, so const interest rate and set interest rate. This is going to be equal to use state. By default, it's also going to be 0. And then const mortgage term set mortgage term is equal to use state. By default, it's going to be 0. And then const monthly payment, so monthly payment set monthly payment is equal to use state. By default, it's going to be 0. Const fixed payment set fixed payment. By default, this is going to be a boolean, so use state. By default, it is going to be true. And then const interest only, so interest only set interest only. By default, it's also going to be a boolean. It is going to be false by default. And then const total repayment set total repayment is equal to use state, and by default it is going to be 0. Now those are all the state values that we're going to need. Now apart from our state values, we are going to also need quite a number of functions, which we're not going to handle just yet because I want to go ahead and build out the UI. So inside our return, we're going to return the following. We're going to have a div with a class name here for flex, min height dash screen, items dash center, justify dash center, padding all around of 4, and then text dash white. Close that out. And then inside this div, we're going to have another div with a class name here, grid width dash full, max width dash 4xl, and then rounded dash 3xl, bg white shadow dash medium, so shadow dash MD, and then on medium screens, grid dash columns dash 2, close that out. And then inside this div, we're going to have another div with a class name here of padding all around of 6. And then inside this div, now we're going to have our h2, and this h2 is going to also have some class names here. So class name is equal to margin bottom of 6, text dash large, text dash xl, text dash xl, and then font dash bold, and then text till dash 900, and then this is just going to say mortgage calculator. Now we can save that because we have written out quite a bit without taking a look at our application. And once it reloads, and we need to import this, so right here, control spacebar, enter. This should work on Z as well as on VS Code, and then actually that's the only import. There we go. There we go. So mortgage calculator, font bold. Oh, I misspelled it. Font bold, and there we go. Fantastic. I don't like this font. I do not like this font. So in order to change up the default font, because I did not like the default font, what you can do is inside your globals.css file, you can simply go ahead and add this part. So this part right here will ensure that it uses the Geist Sans font, which is in the layout, which is imported right here. So simply go ahead and on the bottom, right on the bottom of your CSS file, just add in this part. Now, let's go ahead and continue to build this out. So below the h2, we're going to have a form here with a class name of space-y-6. And then this form is going to have an onSubmit handler, which is going to call a function called calculate payment. So calculate payment. Now we don't have this function, so don't go ahead and save your application first of all. And actually, let's just go ahead and create the skeleton of it. So const calculate payment is going to be equal to an arrow function like so. Just leave it empty for now so that when you save our application, it doesn't break. Now inside this form, we're going to have a div, and then inside this div, remember to close it out. Inside this div, we're going to have a label, which is a component from components UI label, which we installed from TsbSankara. So make sure that you get the correct import. So label, and this label is going to have a class name here of margin bottom of 2. It is going to be a block element, text dash small, font dash bold, text dash till dash 800. Close it out, and then the text for the label is going to say mortgage amount. Mortgage amount. Now below this label, we're going to have a div with a class name of relative. Relative. And then close it out. I don't know why it's not closing out now. So inside this div with the class name of relative, we're going to have another div with a class name of absolute, because we want to position items inside here. And then it's going to have a class name of flex, and then a height of 9 and a width of 8, and then items dash center, justify dash center, justify center, rounded on the left of large, bg till dash 400 with an opacity of 25, so /25. Close the sidebar. And actually that should be it. We can close out this div now, so close it out. And then inside this div, we're going to have an icon here called pound sterling. So pound sterling is coming from Lucid React. Now Lucid React is installed when you install TsbSankara, so you should have access to it. If you don't, then simply go ahead and open up your terminal and then go ahead and say pnpm add Lucid React. So simple as that. And then this is going to have a class name here of size-5, meaning width and height of 5, and then text-till-900. And then outside of this div, we're going to have an input. So input, and then control spacebar right here. Make sure that you import it from components UI input so that it uses the component from TsbSankara. It's going to be a type of number. The placeholder is going to say mortgage amount, and then the value here is going to be loan amount, which is one of the state values that we already created, and then on change. So when you type inside this input, we want to call our synthetic event of e, and then we're going to say set loan amount into e.target.value. So basically populate our state value when you type inside this input. And then the input is going to have some class names here. So class name is equal to padding on the left of 10, text till dash 800, and then the placeholder text, so placeholder dash till dash 700. So this should be dash, not equals. And let's see, we can save that so that we see what we have on the screen. And there we go. So that is basically what I've created. So the pound sterling inside here is the one that is positioned absolute relative to the input, and then padding left of 10 ensures that we can always see the input inside here. And then it's an input of type number, so we can't type in any letters, but we can type in numbers. Okay, so we're basically going to be doing this for all the other inputs as well. So now let's go ahead and continue to build out the inputs. And just to have a reference, you can go ahead and open the preview.png file right here. And when you open it up, then you're going to see what we are building. And why is it not? Okay, there we go. So basically what we've done is this part right here. We have only built this first part. So we want to go ahead and build out the rest of them. Now let's go ahead and do that. So back inside our workspace, we're going to go below these two divs. And then right below the second div, we're going to have an article here with a class name of grid and grid-columns-2, and then a gap of 4. And as you can see, I've not installed any extensions, but I can work with Emmet as well. So they have also implemented Emmet inside Z. And this is not sponsored, by the way. So I might be talking a lot about it, but it's not sponsored. So inside this article, we're going to have a div. And then inside this div, we're going to have a label. So label. And you know what, let's just copy this label because it's basically the same class names. So copy this label, paste it inside here, and then the text is going to say mortgage term, so mortgage term. And then below this label, we're going to go ahead and copy this div that has a class name of relative, so this entire div, copy and then paste it below the label. And then we're going to change up these icons, and this actually doesn't have an icon. This is just going to be a paragraph that says years, and then below this we should have an input type of number. This should say mortgage term. This should now say loan term, or rather mortgage term, not loan term, because that is the name of our state value. And then this is going to say set mortgage term, like so, into e.target value, and then the placeholder is going to be there. And then let's see, we need to go ahead and copy this entire div, and then right before we close the article, we're going to paste it down, because this should now no longer say mortgage term because we already have it on top. So now this should say interest rate, so interest rate. And then the text inside here should now say the percentage sign. This is going to be an input with a type of number. We're going to add an attribute here called step, or in this case it's a prop because input here is a component. So step is equal to 0.01, meaning every time that we change the value up or down, we want it to go up by 0.01 or down by 0.01. And then the placeholder is going to say interest rate, so interest rate. The value is going to say interest rate because we have that state value, interest rate. And then the function is going to say set interest rate. Fantastic. We can save that. Let's see what we have on the screen. There we go. So years and interest rate. I think I should reduce the size of that. We should reduce the size of the years here. We should say text-sm as well as for here. So text-small. That should do it. Just reduce it a bit. And I can barely see it. Oh, you know what? It's darker. It's dark. I'm the one giving the wrong whatever. The wrong color. So it should be text till 800. Is it right here? Text till dash 800. That is the interest rate. And then on the mortgage term right here, we should say text till dash 800. So you can see it. Fantastic. And I've messed up somewhere. I've messed up the style somewhere. So let me remove these styles here. Where on the mortgage term, I'm removing the styles for the div of absolute so that I can add them in. So absolute, and then right of 8, and then right of 0, flex, height dash full, width dash 14, items dash center, justify dash center, rounded on the right of large, bg till dash 400, stroke 25, text dash small, text till dash 900. And then these classes here, so copy this, should be the ones of the interest rate. So paste them inside this div. Paste them in, save it, then let's take a look. There we go. Much better, much better. And on the inputs here now, the inputs should not have a padding on the left. This should now have a padding on the right, and the padding on the right is going to be of 16, so that in case you type a number that is too large, then it is not going to be behind this till that we have. So if you have a number like that, you can see that now it ends there. If I remove the padding right of 16, if I remove it, let's say padding right of 1, then you'd see that the numbers would go behind that and you'll not be able to see it. So padding right 16, and then this one as well, padding on the right of 16 on the right. Fantastic. Now once we do that, then we're going to go below the article. We're going to have a div with a class name of space-y-2, and then inside this div we're going to have a paragraph. This paragraph is going to have a class name of text-small, and then text-til-900, and then this paragraph is going to say mortgage type, so mortgage type. And then below this paragraph we're going to have a label. Once again, the component from Sharsian. This label is going to have an HTML4 fixed repayment, which is an input that we're going to create, so repayment. And then this label is going to have class names, and these class names are going to be dynamic. So open up your curly brackets, add in your backticks, and then we're going to add a class of flex, and then cursor, I can't type, so cursor dash pointer, items dash center, gap dash 2, rounded border, padding all round of 2, text dash til dash 900, and then we're going to add $ curly brackets, and then we're going to say that if fixed repayment is true, remember that fixed repayment is a boolean, so when fixed repayment is true, then the classes that we're going to have inside our double quotations are going to be border dash til dash 700, bg til dash 400 with an opacity of 50, and then transition, that it has a slight transition. And why is this fixed payment? Oh, I called it fixed payment, not fixed repayment. It should be fixed repayment, not fixed payment. Fixed repayment, where is it? Fixed repayment, and then set fixed repayment. That should be it. Fantastic. Now this label, inside this label we're going to have the input. So this is going to have an input with a type of checkbox with an ID of fixed repayment, so that it is tied to the label repayment. And then the checked attribute of this input is going to be dependent on fixed repayment. So if it is true, then it's going to be checked. If it is false, then it is going to be unchecked. And then for the on change of this input, we're going to go ahead and add in an inline function here, and then open it up, and then we're going to say set fixed repayment into the opposite of fixed repayment, meaning if it is false, then set it to true, and then if it is true, then set it back to false. And then we're going to say set interest only to false, because once again, set interest only, or rather interest only, is a boolean. And then outside of this, we can close out our input and then give it a class name of size-6. Fantastic, looking very nice. And then before we can close the label, let's add a span here that says fixed repayment. So save that, and then we should have fixed repayment. There we go. So if it is checked, or if it is true, then it's going to show that, and then when you click it, it is going to show that. So we can toggle it, and it is just simply a checkbox. Now we're going to do the same thing. So what we're going to do is just copy this label and then paste it below that label, and then this is going to change into interest only. So interest dash only, and then the variable here is going to change into interest only, and then let's spell it correctly first of all, then copy that. We can paste it here and then paste it here, and then change this to set interest only, and then we can change this to set fixed repayment to false, and then this now should say interest only, so interest dash only, and then the span should now say interest only, so interest only. Save that, and you should now have two inputs. There we go. So you can choose the mortgage type that you want to pay. So fixed repayment is going to be toggled, and then interest only is going to be toggled. Now see how you can't toggle both of them at the same time? It's basically what is happening inside here. We're saying that when we're checking the input for interest only, then set fixed repayment is going to be turned false, and because it is a boolean and the checkbox depends on the boolean, if it is false, then it's going to be unchecked. So that is basically what is happening inside here, and it looks very, very nice. Now we're going to go below the label, and then below this first div, and then below this div we're going to have a button, and this button is coming from components UI button, which we installed. It's going to have a variant here of default, and then on click, it's going to have an on click handler. We technically don't need this on click handler because the button should be a type of submit, and if it is a type of submit, then we don't need the on click handler because it is going to trigger the submit event on the form, and the form has the on submit event right there. So button on click, or rather without the on click, is going to have a size here of large, and then it's going to have a class name, width dash full, rounded dash full, bg dash, and it's going to be a hexa value here called DAD839, and then text gray dash 900, and then on hover we're going to have a bg of another hexa value here called DAD830, and then add in an opacity of 75%, and you know what, this should be 830, not 839. And then inside the button is going to have a calculator icon, so calculator, which is coming from Lucid React. And then the calculator outside of this, rather, we're simply going to say calculate repayments. Now if we save that, then our form should be complete. Look at that, looking very, very, very nice. Okay, now we need to clean up the background because it looks quite a bit ugly. So let's go back into our globals.css. Oops. Control P and then search for globals.css. And then inside here, let's say bg -100, which is just going to give this a slight hint of the teal color so that now this can be accented better. Now we have built up the left part. Now let's build up the right part, as you can see right here. So now let's build up the results section. So for the results section, this is what we're going to do. And oops, I should remove this so that the styles don't conflict. So we're going to go below this div. So below the form and then below the first div, we're going to create a div here. This div is going to have quite a number of class names because, as you can see right here, we need to account for these rounded edges. So what we're going to do is we're going to give it a class name here of flex-column, item-center, justify, oh, I can't type, justify-center, I can't type, and then rounded-3xl, and then rounded- oh my god, rounded-top-none, so no border on the top on mobile, and then bg gray-800, padding all round of 6, and then text-center, and then on large screens, rounded on the left, or on the bottom left, oh my god, rounded on the bottom left of, pass in 50 pixels inside here, and then on large screens, rounded-top left-none, that we don't have the top left rounded border right here, so basically accounting for that. And then on large screens, then rounded-top right of 3xl. And then inside this div, we want to check whether monthly repayment or the monthly payment is true. And if it is true, then we want to return something inside here. And then if it is false, then we're going to return a div here with class name space-y-6, and then text-center, close out that div. And then we're going to have an error because we have not yet built this part, so don't worry about it. So div, and then inside this div, we're going to have an h3 with class names here. So class name is equal to text-2xl, font-bold, and then text-white. And then inside the h3 is going to say results shown here. And then below the h3, we're going to have a paragraph with the class name of text-small. Okay, paragraph with class name text dash sm leading dash 6, and then text white dash, or rather /75, to give it a bit of opacity, and then close out the paragraph. And then inside this paragraph, we're going to say complete the form and click calculate repayments to see what your monthly repayments would be. Now that is the div in case this is false. Now let's build this other div in case it is true. So close it out, and then now that error should go away. Now this div is going to have some class names as well. So right here it's going to have a class name of space on the y of 4, so space on the y-axis of 4, and then inside this div we're going to have an h3 with the class names of text-2xl, font-bold, text-white. Close that out, and then this is going to say your results, and then below this h3 we're going to have a paragraph that says class name text-sm leading dash 6, and then text white /75, and then this text is going to say basically what is in the image, this part right here. So it's going to say your results shown based on the information you provided, full stop. To adjust the results, edit the form and click calculate repayments again, full stop. Now below this paragraph we're going to have another div. Now this div is going to have a class name here, and the class names are going to be rounded dash large, border dash top dash 4, border dash, and it's a hexa value, hashtag DAD 830, and then BG gray dash 900, padding all around of 6, text dash left, and then on large screens text dash center. And then inside this div we're going to have, oops, what did I do? Okay, inside this div we're going to have another div with the class name here of margin bottom of 4, border dash bottom, border dash gray dash 700, and then padding bottom of 4 to push away from the border just a bit. And then finally inside this div we're going to have a paragraph with a class name of margin bottom of 2, text dash small, text white /75, and the text is going to say your monthly repayments. Now we can save that, and then let's see what we have on the screen. So there we go. So this is the second div that we built, the div on the bottom right here. So in case we don't have any input inside here, then that is the div that shows. And if you were to inspect this and open up the mobile view, then you would see the classes that we added for mobile first. So basically that. Now let's go ahead and let's see. I mean, if we were to input anything inside here and click on calculate repayments, nothing would happen because we haven't yet implemented that function. So even though right now we are building the div that shows the results, we can't really see the results until we create the calculate payments function. So let's just go ahead and build it out. So we're going to go below this paragraph. We're going to add in another paragraph, and this paragraph is going to have some class names here of text-4xl, font-bold, and then text dash, and it's a hexa value, so hashtag DAD 830, and then the text for this paragraph is going to be calling a function called format currency, which we have not yet created, and then we're going to pass in the monthly payment, which is our state value. So monthly payment. Now don't save it yet because it's going to crash your application, but we're going to go below this paragraph, and then below this first div we're going to create another div, and then this div is going to have a paragraph inside here with class names here of margin bottom of 2, and then text dash small, and then text dash white /75, and then the text for this is going to say total you repay over the term. And then below this paragraph, we're going to have another paragraph with class names of text-3XL, font-bold, and text-white. And then the paragraph is going to call the function called format currency again, so format currency. And then we're going to pass in the total repayment, which is our state value. Now, once we do that, then we need to now create our functions. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, the easiest function to create of the two is the format currency function. So let's go ahead and do that. So right before the return, let's go ahead and say const format currency is equal to, and we're going to pass in the value, as you can see, because in the format currency, we are passing in one of our state values. So we need to pass that in as an argument. So we're calling the argument the value, and then we're going to say return new international, so intl dot number format. So we want to get the number format, and then we're passing in the English and the Great British because we're using the pound symbol inside here. So that's why I've chosen that. And then we're going to pass in a comma, open up an object here, and we're going to say that the style for this is going to be currency. And by the way, this is from JavaScript. This is not a package that you install, so you can read about it. You can simply Google it. And then the currency that we're using is the Great British Pound. And then the minimum fraction digits, so minimum fraction digits that you want is 2, so basically 2 decimal places. And then right here we're going to say dot format, and then pass in the value, which is the state value. Now let's say that is the format currency function complete. Now we need the beefy function, which is the calculate payment function. Now, first of all, because we know that this function is on the form, we need to pass in our event here so that we can say e.prevent_default, so that it prevents the default behavior of the form reloading the web page when you submit it. Now, before we continue, let's go ahead and take a look at the mortgage repayment function. And here it is. So this is the mortgage repayment function, where M is the monthly payment, P is the loan amount, so the principal, R is the interest rate, and then N is the total number of payments in years. So we're going to create this function basically, and then just substitute our values inside here, our state values. And in all honesty, I did not know how to do this, so this is a screenshot from ChatGPT. So e.prevent_default, and then below this we're going to define our values. So we know that we need the principal amount, so const principal is equal to, and we want to go ahead and say parse float or parse float. I don't know how to speak like that. So parse float, and then we're going to pass in the loan amount, which is our principal amount, and then const rate is equal to, once again, parse float, and then this is going to be passed in the interest rate over 100 and divided by 12. So get the interest rate, divide it by 100, and then divide that by 12. And then const payments, meaning the number of payments, is equal to, once again, parse float, and then the mortgage term, so mortgage term, and I've done something wrong. This, close this out, divide this by 100, and then divide that by 12, so that it gets the correct function. Now, once you do that, then we're going to say let payment is equal to 0, and then let total also equal to 0. And then if interest only, meaning if we only want to get the interest, because interest only is a boolean which is used to toggle this. So if we only want to get the interest, then the function that we're going to run is the following. We're going to say payment is equal to principal times the rate, and then the total is going to be equal to the payment multiplied by the payments, and then add in the principal. So just make sure that you get the signs correctly, or that the symbols. This is an asterisk, which is the multiplication symbol, and then this is the plus for the addition symbol, and then else if, and then pass in fixed repayments. So if we want to get the fixed repayment, then the function is going to be as follows. We're going to say payment is equal to, open up your brackets here, and then say principal principal times the rate times math.power, so raise it to the power so that we can get where is it, this part right here, math to the power, and then pass in 1 plus rate and then comma payments, and then divide this by what is this, principal, I should misspell it, principal, and then math dot power once again. So basically building out the bottom part. Now we want to build out this part, and we're saying 1 plus the rate and then comma payments, and then outside of this minus 1. So once again, this is basically what we're doing. So the minus 1 is this part right here, so minus 1 is this part right here, and then math dot power, what we're doing inside here is basically this. And then on the top we get the principal, the rate, and then multiply that by the 1, multiply that by 1 plus the rate, and then pass in the payments, so that pass in the pencil comma payments, which is going to do that. So that is the power. And then let's see, we're going to go ahead and below this we're going to see that the total therefore is going to be equal to the payments times the payments. And then below this we're going to say set monthly payment into the payment dot to fixed, and then pass in 2 decimal places. So we want to see it to 2 decimal places, and then set total repayment into the total dot to fixed, and then pass in 2 as 2 decimal places. And that should be our function. So let's save that. Let's go ahead and take a look at our application. Let's reload it to be on the safe side. So let's say that the mortgage amount is 300,000, and then the number of terms, or the number of years to repay is 30. Interest rate, let's say, is 7, and then we want to get the fixed repayment. So when we click calculate repayments, and there we go. So your results are here. So the number of monthly payments that you should make is this, and then the total that you repay over the term is this. And then if the interest only mortgage type, you can say calculate repayments, and there we go. Fantastic. Now very quickly I want to go ahead and change up the title for this. So let's go open this sidebar into the layout. Let's say that this is going to say Frontend Mentor, and this should say Mortgage Repayment Calculator. And then let's just copy this because it's easier. Copy, paste it inside here, save that, and that should update our title. You can close that. That should now update our title. You can close this as well because I think we're done with it. There we go. So now let me open up GitHub, and then Frontend Mentor is already here, but I want to open up Netlify. So app.netlify.com, because we want to submit this project. So Control J, shut down the server, clear the terminal, and then let's see. So add a new site. I can't really add a new site until I've created the repository. So create repository inside here, and if you want this link, it should be in the description below, and it should be in the opening title card of the video. So repository name, Mortgage Repayment Calculator. I already have a repository like this. Oh no, I misspelled it. This should have a G. There we go. So I already have a repository like this. So I'm going to call this Mortgage Payment Calculator -YT, and then create repository. And then let's go ahead and copy this link, and then we're going to say the following. We're going to say git add all, git commit -m initial commit, and then git remote add origin, paste that in, git push -u origin main, and that should now push it to GitHub. Oh, I noticed something. I think GitHub changed its authentication stuff. So right now you can't just do this. You have to go ahead and create a what's it called, a key or something. But I already did that, so let me just show you. And actually I can show you how to do that. It should be inside your profile. You need to go into settings, and then inside your profile you need to go to the bottom, search for developer settings, and then personal access tokens, and then you can use the tokens classic. I think that should be it. And then you need to create a new token. So once you create a new token here, so generate a new token for general use, we can use that one. Use GitHub Mobile to authenticate. Okay. And authenticate. There we go. So once you do that, then you need to go ahead and pass in what your repository or your token can do. So just select repo. You can select workflow, for example, all of this, delete packages, all this, all this, all that. Select. Oh my god, click. Okay, click. You can select all that. You really don't need all of this, but I can't remember the default ones that are set. So I'm just selecting all of them just to show you, and then generate token. And then, oh, can't be blank. Let me say GH test. So GitHub test. And then you need to select the expiry, by the way. So expiry here is 30 days, 60 days, 7 days, custom, no expiration. You can use something like that. But let me just say like 7 days. And then when you generate token, then it's going to generate this token for you, and you need to copy it, because if you don't copy it now, you won't be able to see it again. So copy it. And then what you need to do is you need to go ahead and get this link. Let me go ahead and get it. So open it up. So you need to go ahead and get this link right here, and you will notice that I've blurred out the keys that I use. But for demonstration purposes, I can do the following. This is the key that I've just copied, and then copy this. Oops. I can just copy this downwards and then substitute the key inside here. There we go. And what you'll notice is now the URL that you need to do is basically this. So get git remote set URL origin HTTPS, and then pass in your token, and then at github.com/ your username / the repository name. So we need to do that, and it's quite a hassle, as you can see, but I guess it's more secure. So paste that in, and the repository name is mortgage repayment calculator -yt. Enter, and then now you can say git push -u origin main, and that is going to push it to GitHub. Let's see, there we go. So that now if we go into my GitHub profile, open, no, not open image, come on, open profile. So if you go back inside here into the repositories, I should be able to see the mortgage payment calculator YT, which is the link to the repository in case you want this. Fantastic. Very, very, very nice. So let's go into Netlify. Let's add a new site from an existing project, and then into GitHub. And then inside GitHub, you can wait for this. So let's search for mortgage. And then as that is searching, I want to go back to my GitHub here and delete this access token, because I've showed it in the video, so I don't want it. I don't want it to be visible inside here. But as you can see that I have another token here which I use, which is expiring on June 8th. So you can go ahead and create them if you don't have them. If that is in case you're getting that error that you saw that I got about GitHub, which was it? This one right here. In case you're getting this, because even if you pass in your username and the password, it's still going to refuse. Believe me, I tried, and it was quite annoying. So now we can close that. We can go back to here. We need to deploy the calculator YT. So get this. The site name is going to be TsbSankara -mortgage, invalid use of hyphens. Okay, mortgage repayment. That's too long. Calculator. Yeah, that's too long. So let me just say mortgage calculator. Calculator. And then let's go to the bottom. We don't have any environment variables, so we can simply say deploy, and then wait for this to deploy. Okay, so we have an issue here. What's the issue? Oh no, unescaped characters. Really? That's so annoying. That is so annoying. So we need to go ahead and get to be inside. What line is it? 172, 173. So 172. Line number 172. Really, it's because of this, the double quote. Really? Okay, let's say ampersand post. So that is going to add the entity, and then do that for this again. And then we need to do it for which line again? 173, number 27. What? Okay, that we've already done that. So we need to do it here as well. Then ampersand apostrophe there as well. And then where else? And what? It should be quote because it's a double quote, not apostrophe. So just select, highlight this, and then Control D, Control D. Then change that to quote, QUOT. That should do it. And then line number 188. 188, this should be ampersand apostrophe because now that is an apostrophe. And then line number 202. 202. Okay, we've already done that. And then number 202 as well. Okay, save that. Then git add or git commit -m. Let's say remove unescaped entities unescaped, then git push, and then that is going to push it back to GitHub. Password. Oh my god, I deleted the I deleted this key, so I need to do that again. So let me just quickly do that again. And there we go. So I've pushed it to GitHub. So now it should be visible in my GitHub that we have made a new commit. Let's see. There we go. So remove unescaped entities. And wait, did I spell that with a double T? Really? I mean, it doesn't really matter anyway. So let's just wait for this to redeploy. Okay, so deploy in progress. Once again, it's a waiting game. And there we go. So we can now open up the production deploy, and there's our application. You can test it out to ensure that everything works. Fixed repayment. There you go. Fantastic. Okay, now let's copy this link. Let's go back inside here and let's say submit solution. And the live site URL is that one. This is the repository URL. And then the title, mobile first mortgage repayment calculator in Next.js. Fantastic. Go to the bottom, submit solution, and then I can close our links here. There you go. Fantastic. Oh my god. Let's see how close we got. How close did we get? Oh, I didn't add the image. I mean, we didn't even take a look at what we downloaded. So anyway, I mean, it's a small feature, but it makes it look a bit better, as you can see. Fantastic. Oh, and the clear button as well. I'm going to leave that up to you because the clear button is very simple. All you can do is just create a function here, and then inside the function, what you're going to be doing is just saying, where is it? Set loan amount back to 0, set interest amount to 0, mortgage term 0, basically that. I mean, it's quite simple. And yeah, that is going to be the end of the video. And I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, then please leave a like and subscribe to the channel as well if you're not already. And I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.